All right.
So
this,
this,
go,
sorry,
go.
this is really where we want to spend maybe a little bit more time. The home buying process is pretty standard, but again, like we said in the beginning, there are things that come up in every deal where your agent and you and the other party is going to have to sort of figure out a way to go forward. It happens all the time, and we usually can get through them. But what Quincy and I do, which is maybe a little bit different than a lot of other agents, is right at the beginning, before you even obtain financing, we like to sit down with any new prospective buyer and seller, but mainly we do this for buyers, and do a one-on-one consultation. It's a little bit like this, but it's a little more involved in your personal situation. So we'll sit down with you at a neutral space. We don't make it come to our office. We'll buy a coffee when we can all go back out and support our local businesses again. And we'll go over what this is going to look like. We'll get your timeline. We get your motivation for moving. We have some nice information that we can give to you that details basically this whole thing, right? So it goes through everything that we're talking about. And we want to do that, and there's no obligation to work with us if you sit down for that meeting. It's an educational process. But from there, what we do is make sure that you first talk to a lender. That's really the most important thing to do to get this process started. How can you know what house you can buy if you don't know how much house you can afford? So we obtain financing.
Just interject real quick. I always compare it to window shopping. So as fun as it is to go window shopping, unless you do the pre-approval, you really have no idea what you can buy. And I might chime into a couple things about pre-approvals. It should be quick, right? They're painless, they're harmless, they're quick, and they don't cost you money. You should not be charged for pre-approval. Yeah.
Saying there's no obligation to working with anybody when you take that extra time in the beginning. Taking a little extra time in the beginning is huge in understanding the process, understanding what's involved, understanding your options. Everybody's situation is different, and there's going to be lots of pub mortgage professionals out there that are going to give you their take, what they think you should do. You don't know what you should do until you sit down with a professional and talk to somebody about those options. You might be heading into it thinking something's right for you, and there might be something else out there that's going to be better for you, or something standing in the way, a little hurdle that you might need to kind of cross before you get to the point where you're able to qualify. So it's starting early is huge. Giving yourself some time to learn the process, learn what's involved, learn your options. A little bit of time at the beginning is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache in the long run.
Yeah, and Mike, I think you hit something that's super important, and maybe people don't think about, because you see commercials for these online mortgage companies, right? You just type your information in online and they give you a pre-approval, and it's great and you're good to go. It's a little bit more involved than that. And what Mike said that I thought was interesting is there may be a program that's better for you that you just don't know about. So I always try to caution people from using the online applications only, just because you're not actually talking to a human on the other end who can interpret what you're saying and put you towards a program that is actually better for you rather than just some blanket catch-all. So it's okay to find a lender online. I think that's okay. Your agent is going to have preferred lenders that they work with all the time. Having that relationship is a good thing, because I always tell my clients, hey, like, I can call Mike at Sunday night at 8:00 and say, Mike, we need to fix this. I don't have that relationship with one of the larger banks across the country. So it's nice having a relationship with your lender. But just be cautious of applying online only. Like, it's definitely recommended that you actually talk to somebody. Right.
Yeah.
So moving down the line, defining what you want. This is a big thing. How many bedrooms do you want? What neighborhood are you looking for? Are you downsizing? Do you need a larger house because your family is growing? There's all sorts of things that are personal to you that will really help your agent find the best home for you. Location is important. Everybody's heard of that location. That is the big thing people think about in real estate that has to do with resale value and all that stuff. But really narrow down before you talk to anybody. You should have a good idea of what it is that your must-haves are, what you need in your house, and what are your, I'd like to have these. Those can be two different things. And then when you sit down with your agent, they should be able to tell you, okay, I see your pre-approval. Thanks for doing that ahead of time. Within your price range, this is what I can get you on your must-have list, or this is what I can get you everything on your must-haves, and we can go after those, nice amenity upgrades. So that's why it's also important having that pre-approval ahead of time. We can tell you exactly where to start looking to find the most amenities on your list, and go from there.
Right. And I think, the realistic situation with house hunting and looking for houses is we try and get a list of the things that are most important to you. There is no perfect house unless you're going to custom build one, which, most of us are not doing. So, when we go out, we try to find a house that has most everything on your criteria. And we work with you to figure out which items on that list, which is the most important. Do you care most about location? Do you care most about the size of your house? Do you care most about being able to walk to things? Do you care most about privacy? And once we identify the order in which that is, it's much easier to find a house.
Yep. I'm just going to chime in here. Make sure if you do have a question, because I know we're talking about a lot of stuff, make sure you type that into the chat. We'll go back at the end and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can. Yeah. So just feel free to do that as it pops in your head. I don't want you to forget a question. Once we identify your needs, we'll start looking, and that process of looking for a house, that's up to you. That can take as long as it needs to take. There's no set time frame for that. But once we find one, we'll figure out a purchase price. We'll do all the market research for you and with you. Just know that I can't speak for other agents, but when Quincy and when we give you a price that we think the house is worth, that's based on market research. It's not our opinion. That's what the market says the house is worth. Now, getting the seller to agree to that is a whole different thing that goes into the negotiations. And you can talk more about that when the time comes. We don't need to dive too far into that right now, but just know that we can negotiate on more than price. So there are other avenues that we can go and use. Once we're under contract, we conduct a home inspection. We make sure that the house is safe for you to live in. It's not for, I don't like the paint color. It's not for loose outlet covers. It's not for the little tiny things, general homeowner maintenance. It's the big things. Is the house going to fall down? Is there a wiring issue? Is the roof old and leaking? We can then ask the sellers to fix those. And that's another negotiating point in the contract. If you guys don't have anything, I'm just going to kind of blow through these to get
go ahead.
through. Once we go through that, and once everything is satisfied and the contract continues, I like to do 2 walkthroughs. A lot of people just do 1, I do 2. I do 1 a few days in advance of settlement by myself without my client. I go through and I make sure that all the repairs that we've negotiated and agreed upon are completed to my satisfaction. I get repair receipts from contractors. They need to be licensed, or that repair doesn't count. I write that into my contract, and I make sure that they're all done appropriately. If they're not, I go early to give the seller time to fix their mistakes, basically. Once I'm sure that those repairs are completed, then I walk through with the client, typically the day of settlement. That's a quick walkthrough. Look how great your house is. Aren't you excited? Yes, let's go settle. So that's something extra, again, as you're interviewing agents, just make sure that they do that final walkthrough with you. It's very important to make sure that those repairs are done, and they're done by a professional.
All right. So I think at this point, Mark and I are going to take a break, and we're going to let Mike take over here on some of the lending stuff.
Cool. And feel free to jump in, anybody in the chat as well, if you guys have any questions in between. There's a lot on the mortgage end of things. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're borrowing, depending on your situation. So there can be quite a bit. And we kind of work as financial advisors and planners to try and help you figure out what mortgage is going to work best for you. As I went back to earlier, you're going to meet a lot of people out. I mean, family members. Once you start looking for a home, people are going to come out of the woodworks and give you their take on what they think you should do. That's why it's beneficial to talk to a professional. I mean, we go by multiple names: lenders, mortgage planner, mortgage professional. But that's what we're here for, is to help plan the best plan of action for you to suit your needs, to find that most comfortable mortgage payment for you. So that's a payment that you're going to have for these next 30 or so years, depending on what type of loan you get into, and then also with that cash out of pocket. Even though you can come to the table with little to no money in some situations, depending on what programs you're going with, you definitely want to have some money available, because the more money you have, the more options you have available. Kind of touching back on the slide that we just had up there, whether you start with your real estate agent or you come to us first, they're going to reroute you back to us anyway. I mean, financing is kind of that first step. You want to go get yourself pre-approved. Make sure there's nothing that's standing in the way of you being eligible for a loan. Figuring out what loan product is best for you, what loan type, exploring all the options of how to structure it. I mean, there's lots involved. We'll go a little more into depth of that. Feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So as you see on the little chart here, there are 3 sections, and these are kind of 3 main things that any bank or lender looks at and when determining which option is going to be best for you in terms of your loan type. There's credit. It's pretty straightforward. We get those 3 credit scores straight from the 3 credit bureaus. You want to have some good credit. That's why you talk to somebody, especially nowadays with having access to your credit scores through your credit cards, Credit Karma. Those things aren't always accurate. So even though you might like the scores on there, check with a mortgage lender first to make sure that those are accurate. If not, you have a better idea of where they stand. If you're not in position to qualify, we'll hopefully be able to help you get into a better position. We're not credit experts, but there are some things that we can do to help you out a little bit, and show you where you are and where you might need to be. So very, very important, and good credit is going to help you kind of obtain the best interest rates. Second section is that loan to value, which is kind of basically the down payment that you're going to put down on the purchase. Like I mentioned, there are some different programs out there, so you don't necessarily need to. But contrary to what used to be in the past, you don't need to put down 20% these days. There's lots of different options out there, which we can walk you through. And then the third one is your debt to income ratio, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. And that's basically accounting for your debt, any liabilities that you have that are reported on your credit report, meaning your personal loans, student loans, credit cards, car loans, and then factoring that potential mortgage payment. And then kind of calculating that with your monthly income. Also, something you definitely want to chat with a professional about. You might be salaried. You might know exactly how much you make each month. You might be hourly and you kind of calculate it. But a lot of people will come to us and tell us about income they have. Don't count on being able to use your income until you talk to somebody and kind of confirm that that's usable income. Because even though you might be able to afford it in terms of your monthly payment, let's say you have extra money coming in from side jobs that you do. If we can't use that money in terms of your qualification, that's not doing you any good to qualify for them, even though you can afford it. So those are kind of those 3 big things that we look at, each equally important. That's why they have kind of those ratios there. Good to check out all those factors, and they'll help us determine which route we're going to take with you. All right, so there's a lot to this process, and that's why it takes it's a little bit of time in the beginning, 45 minutes to an hour with one of us. I mean, it's great to chat with your real estate agent. Take that little bit of time beforehand. If you can take that little bit of time beforehand, it's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run. You've got to go over what to expect, go over options. And as Mark had mentioned, you can go shop for a mortgage online. They're going to give you, here's your product, here's what we're offering you, kind of take it or leave it. With us, we're going to walk you through all those different options there and kind of help figure out what loan is, or how to best structure the loan that fits you. Like I mentioned, every situation is different. So sit down with somebody to figure out, keep that monthly payment where you want it, that cash that you have. I mean, we're big believers in keeping that cash in hand, especially look at the times we're living in right now. Stock market not doing so well. People that were getting ready to purchase a house a couple of weeks ago had those funds in a money market, had them in the stocks, and not doing so well now. So having that cash available, especially for the people that might be not working as much, keep that liquid so that you have that available. And then on top of that, you want to find out exactly how much it's going to cost, because you might have a price range in your mind. You might be looking online, have your price range of what homes you feel most comfortable with and what works for you. But sometimes there's more involved. I mean, there's closing costs, there's down payments. Depending on the situation, there might be HOA fees, condo fees, lots involved that you might not think that we need to account for, that we do. So it's good to sit down and kind of really tighten that up before you go out there and start looking at homes and wasting your time and anybody else's time for a price range that might not fit you.